Yeah, hey guys. So for today's topic, I wanted to do a more hands-on exercise around the WSDL we talked about yesterday. So at a high level, what we did is we defined what a WSDL was, why it's so pertinent within the SOAP protocol, and we reviewed a WSDL. So now I want to do something with it within Boomi. So with that said, what we'll do today is we'll utilize the web services server client connector for SOAP. So the SOAP web services client connector. So it's going to be right here. So essentially at a high level, what we'll end up doing is we're going to use that WSDL to identify the location of the service. From there, we're going to import using that WSDL to determine what functions, whatever we can do within that specific service. And then we'll perform an action based on that. So essentially what this web services SOAP client connector does is it allows you to integrate with applications that expose any sort of SOAP-based web service. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the calculator WSDL from our previous topic. So we'll go over some of the connection settings, operation, and items of that sort. So I'll just call this the tech topic SOAP. So I'll put in the WSDL URL. So the SOAP endpoint URL isn't necessarily needed, as you can pull the endpoint URL where our connector can natively do that using the WSDL URL, which is nice. But let's say you have, so you can obviously use a HTTP or HTTPS based WSDL URL as long as the runtime you're using has access to this WSDL. It should be completely fine to use. You can also use a local WSDL. There's a specific format to that. It's like file colon slash slash and then like the drive name. Items of that sort you can use as well if it is local and you're using a disk or a some sort of C drive where you have the WSDL stored. Security type, you can change this as needed. So none, there's basic. If you select advanced, there's a couple parameter settings here. We'll get into this later. Nothing to worry about right now. But just for this, there's no authentication associated with it. You don't need any certificates as it's HTTP and we're not using two-way SSL. So nothing to worry about here. Pretty easy so far. I'll name this SOAP operation. So now what we're going to do is import. So I'm going to import, as this is a publicly, so as you can see, we can locate it here. Any cloud can be used. So I'm going to use the cloud. I'm going to expose the request and the response envelope just so you can see how that's constructed from the WSDL. You don't need to expose both, but I think by default how it works is the request is exposed just so you can perform mapping logic on it, but having the response exposed allows you to see any potential header values you might not known about. If you want to see the exact structure of the response, items of that sort. So the one function we talked about yesterday was add. So we're going to use add. And let's look at what was generated from that. So here's my execute request. I'll call it my SOAP request, nice and easy. So as we talked about, envelope, header, body. So with the add function, there's int A and int B. So as you can see here, int A, int B, min max 1. So that should match what our platform generated. Great. So that worked as expected. With that said, we do need some sort of, I need to save this quickly. We do need some sort of mapping logic associated with that. But one other item before I do that is let's look at the response. So my SOAP response. So the body, as you can see here, there's an add response and add result. So what we'll see is an element in add result depending on what we end up adding. So what we'll do is I'm just going to have a message shape. Essentially what I'll do is I'll just map a flat file profile right to the request. And then from there, we'll review the results. So that's completely fine. I'll pull up a map, add a map. I'm just going to use a flat file profile with one element. Nothing crazy there, just because the reason I'm going to be doing that, as we talked about, it should be XML because everything SOAP WSDL based is XML. So it should be called my SOAP request. Great. I'm just going to set default values here, but I want the mapping logic to persist. So let's say int A is 2 and int B is 3. And as we talked about, and we looked at the documentation for this, it's going to add 2 integers. That's it. So we should get the result of int A and int B. So it should be 5 in that add result element. So now that that's created, let's run this process quickly and let's see the results. Give it a second. Great, saved. Now with that done, let's run a test. Great. So let's look at the input data. So this is the response, or I'm sorry, this is the request generated from the mapping logic. So as you can see, we can go right to this URL right here. Awesome. So it's just the scheme for the SOAP 1.1 envelope. Like we talked about, no headers needed. Headers are optional. And here's my 2 elements as a part of this body. So we're adding, and then the result should be 5. So let's see what it does. Add result is 5 as a part of that add response function with the add result element. So that looks like it worked as expected. All right, sounds good, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.